Started here. Welcome to episode 7, the Spring Cocktails class. Thank you all for joining us today. We are going to get started with spring. It's a touch early. I mean, we had a little chill today, but I wanted to talk about some of the ingredients that would be great with spring cocktails. So with that, to me, it's strawberry, rhubarb, and cucumber are 3 ingredients that fit perfectly with that type of, with the early summer season, with spring. You're still a little bit too early for melons and other berries, so strawberries are really perfect this time of the year. Our first cocktail tonight, and they're going to be a little bit out of order, is going to be the cucumber gin cocktail. So let's get a drink in everyone's hands. We'll get started with that, and then we'll go more into how we can make these things and why I picked these 3 cocktails. So for our equipment set for the first spot, it's going to be our jigger. So we need our jigger, our shaker set, and then we have a strainer, a Hawthorne strainer, and a mesh strainer. We will need the mesh strainer today because we're using whole fruit pieces. We don't want to have any little bits of pieces in our cocktail. With this, we also have a taller glass. We're going to be adding some soda, and that's usually my rule of thumb when trying to decide what glass to use. If I'm deciding between a rocks glass or a Collins glass, I'm going to use the Collins glass if it's a carbonated beverage of some kind. So even if it's just a mixer like a gin and tonic or rum and coke, I'm going to use this glass. If it's something that doesn't have any soda, I'm probably going to be using a rocks glass. The rationale behind that is with a glass like this, you have a much smaller surface area, so less carbonation is going to leave your glass and your drink. If you have it in a wider glass, more carbonation is going to leave. The same principle applies for champagne. The really nice champagne flutes, the ones that people used to use, let off so much of the carbonation that you were drinking flat champagne a lot faster. So a thinner flute gives off less carbonation and gives off the carbonation at a slower rate that allows you to drink it for a longer period of time. So long story short, we're using our Collins glass if you have one. And then our software for this cocktail is going to be our rum. Let's see here. We have rum, lime juice. I apologize, I misspoke. Gin, cucumber juice, lime juice, and our agave simple syrup. The lime juice you're going to be using in a couple cocktails for this class, so just make sure you don't overdo it on the first few here. I think lime juice is actually in every cocktail we're using today. All right. One last thing to talk about. There is a wild card ingredient that you have. You have an ounce of mezcal. It is not on any recipe, and there are, by the way, 3 of you that did not get the mezcal. I apologize. See me after class, and I will make that up to you. But there is an ounce of mezcal that you have. It's up to you which cocktail you use it from, if you want to use it at all. What you would do is just substitute a ½ ounce of the mezcal for the base spirit that we're using. I think it's going to go I think the perfect cocktail to use it for is the Spicy Strawberry Margarita that we're going to have in a minute. That'll be the second cocktail we have. But it's up to your discretion. If you'd like to mix it in with the cucumber, a smoky bit with the cucumber and the gin is going to go really nicely. I kind of just wanted to have this as an option so you could, what I'm trying to sort of show off is the versatility of these cocktails and these type of recipes that you have. You can do it with just gin. You can do it with a different type of base spirit. So if you want to use mezcal here, you can. All you would do is just substitute out a ½ ounce of the mezcal in for a ½ ounce of the gin. But let's set that aside for just a second. And we'll get our shaker ready for our first cocktail. Now, when we're mixing, we're going to, and let me switch to the other camera. Let's see better. It's coming. It'll be there. And again, maybe it won't. I love this technology. And the second time it works. Here we go. All right, so with our cocktail here, we're going to start with the sort of the least expensive ingredient. We want to make sure that if we make a mistake, we're not throwing out our nice gin. So it'll be, first off, 3/4 of an ounce of agave simple syrup. Three-quarters of an ounce of lime juice. This does possibly settle, so you may have to give it a quick shake. And then we're going to do an ounce of cucumber. And like I said, this cucumber is just pureed cucumbers. If you have a juicer, you can use you can just use that straight. If you're using a blender, you're going to need to add a little bit of water to get the kind of the blender working. And then a pinch of salt. I'm going to talk about salt a little bit more in a minute, but it really helps out to bring out the flavors of all of these ingredients. It's not, it's kind of necessary to really accentuate all the ingredients we have. And lastly, it'll be 1.5 ounces of gin. This gin is Blue Coat Gin, an American dry gin. So it's more citrus forward, which I think goes well. Other gins would work just fine here, but that's just my preference. So after that, we're going to grab some.
Put ounce or put a pinch of salt in the shaker, or no?
You can add a little bit more salt. I did the salt for you.
In cucumber. Got it. Mm-hmm.
Salt, you certainly could, but I have included that with your cucumber juice. So I'm going to add some salt on your own. Let's grab some ice for our shaker and for our glass. The rule of thumb when you're shaking is you want to make sure that your ice is over top of your liquid. You want to have at least that much ice in there. Otherwise, it's not going to chill it as you need it to. And when we're shaking horizontally. We don't want to shake up and down. We want to shake horizontally. Okay. With this, we're going to grab our Hawthorne strainer for inside the strainer, and then we're also going to grab our mesh strainer. And this is just to get any bits out that might be left over from both the lime or the cucumber. It will also take out ice chips, which aren't a problem necessarily in this drink, but in others, you may not want to have them there. Okay. And then lastly, you're going to take a little bit of your club soda and pour that right on top. You also want to either grab a straw or a spoon and have that down there so it can. And you're not going to actually stir it too much with the straw or spoon. You just want to kind of give it just a little bit of agitation to go down the side so that you're include cucumbers in the kit. And I just want to show you one of my favorite cucumber garnishes. All you need for this one is a peeler. Of course, the plastic's going to give me trouble. Go. So my favorite cucumber garnish is a cucumber ribbon, where you discard the first one, but after that, you just take a long strip of cucumber and then fold it back over on itself until it gives you this nice ribbon that you lay right in the top. And that is the cucumber gin cocktail. Cheers. I didn't forget to record. I believe we started the recording already. If anybody does need a recording of this, I can send it to you later. And then we are supposed to be posting it to the YouTube.
Cheers, everybody. This is delicious.
I know.
Do that.
Cheers.
Glad you're enjoying it. So I do have to also do chef's job tonight. So I'm double booked. The food pairing for this one, if you did decide to get the food pairing, is the Green Goddess dip. The Green Goddess dip is made with sour cream, mayonnaise, spinach, parsley, tarragon, basil, lime juice, olive oil, and then you have a mixture of spring vegetables to have with it, carrots, radishes, and cucumbers, I believe. This is delicious, one of my favorite things. I mean, you really can't go wrong with sour cream and mayo in anything. You can mix that with really anything possible, and you're going to find something that's delicious. So I love this dip that he makes. It's one of my favorite things that the chef does. Best dip so far. And he's not even here to hear about it.
Can you
ate
send us
half
the
of it for lunch
recipe?
already? You didn't even wait around. Unbelievable. All right, any issues making that first cocktail? We all on the same page up to here?
Len? Len,
Yes.
are we supposed to have poured the whole club soda in?
No, just a splash right on top, just to top it off.
That's where we went wrong.
Okay.
So
You
we'll
will also probably need a little bit of club soda later in the class. So maybe you have one in the fridge we can.
They give us.
Leave extra.
I think these are.
Okay, all right. Did you do it for both cocktails?
What's that?
You did 2 cocktails and you poured all the club soda into both of them?
We still have some left. We did
Okay.
4.
Yeah,
Okay?
you just want to, it's just a little bit of a topper there, maybe ounce and a half, 2 ounces tops. I should have been more specific, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's delicious.
Can I send out the Green Goddess dip? Here, let me do this now so everyone has it. I'm putting my email address in here. If you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to reach out.
Hey, how do we get the email address?
And then there was a request for the recipe that I'm gonna have to ask Chef about. I don't know his feelings on sharing recipes. I obviously share my recipes freely. I don't think he'll have an issue with it, but I don't have it on me to share right now. So if you're interested in any of the recipes, even this one or the any of the dips we've had before, what kind of radish is this?
Very good. Do you know what these are?
Watermelon radish.
I don't. There you go. Thank you.
Radishes.
Somebody's got my back there.
That's melon radish.
Okay. Yes, watermelon radishes. These are delicious.
That dressing is to die for.
Okay, if you want to take a second and maybe clean out your glassware, get your shakers ready for the next cocktail. Then we are going to use the shaker in every cocktail today, so we may have to take a second in between to give everybody just a moment to catch up. I also have one person who is missing the link, so I'm going to send her. All right. There we go. The next cocktail we're going to be doing is the Spicy Strawberry Margarita. Now, this cocktail, it's really a base margarita recipe. Actually, all the three of these cocktails have very similar builds. And when I say build, I just mean sort of the recipe and the ratio of ingredients. Part of what the design of this class was is to make people feel more comfortable making cocktails at home and using the ingredients that you have in the same way you would for making a pasta. If you decide you want to have pasta for dinner and you look in the fridge and you say, okay, I have a little bit of asparagus, I have some leftover garlic, you're going to sort of make your dish that way based on what you have. You can do the same thing with cocktails. If it's okay, I don't necessarily have sweetener, but I have some maple syrup. I have some bourbon. I can make an old fashioned with maple syrup. I have cucumbers. I have grapefruit soda. I have, gin. That's perfect. That's enough for a cocktail right there. And just becoming more comfortable with making some adaptations to classic cocktails and variations. The other point of picking these three ingredients was you have three ingredients that by themselves are at far ends of the spectrum on sweetness and acidity. Strawberries, when they're right, are sweet. Cucumber to me is sort of in the middle, not sweet, not acidic, not bitter, but flavorful. And rhubarb by itself is rather tart. So I'm showing you three different ways to incorporate those flavors into a cocktail. With the cucumbers, we're just juicing it, getting as much flavor from them as possible using a little bit of salt. With the strawberries, we did the same thing for ease here, but you could also use fresh strawberries and muddle them in the bottom of your cocktail and use them straight away, use them fresh. With the rhubarb, we made a simple syrup where we took rhubarb, added it to water, put it to heat, and then mixed it with some sugar at the end to get a rhubarb simple syrup. With a tart ingredient, you need to add more sugar to it, but you also want to adjust your recipe. So whereas we have agave mix in addition to the cucumber, when we do the rhubarb cocktail, the rhubarb simple syrup is our sweetener. So we need to adjust the recipe a little bit to fit in those parameters and to keep in mind, as we add something, is it adding more acidity? Is it adding more sugar? Or do we need to add more of those ingredients to compensate for what we're adding? There's a question, if you substitute maple syrup for simple syrup, to use the same measurements. It depends on your maple syrup. If your maple syrup is super sweet, you would want to pull back on your sugar content a little bit. If you have like I have a maple syrup that actually it was finished in rye barrels, and it's delicious, but it's not as sweet as some of the maple syrups that you have. So you're going to want to go a little bit, maybe a little bit more on that maple syrup. So yes, the recipe that you would have is a good starting point, but you want to be able to adjust it slightly either way, depending on the ingredient that you're working with. Okay. So with this one here, let's make sure we get our equipment set again. We're going to be using a jigger and shaker again. We're also going to be using a the same strainer and mesh strainer. And then a glass. I like a rocks glass for this cocktail. And then our software ingredients, we have the chili infused tequila. It has already been infused for you. So for spicy infusions, we go off of the sort of a standard rule of 1 bottle, 1 whole jalapeno for 1 day. And that we find gives us the right ratio of spice to liquid. You have to be careful with it if you're using smaller amounts or different ingredients. However, if you go over, and let's say you make an infusion of jalapeno and it's just too spicy, you can always add a little bit more tequila to thin out, or whatever spirit you're using, to just thin back that recipe to make it to the right bit of spice. When you're tasting an infusion, it should be just a bit more than you would like tasting it by itself, because as you dilute it with other ingredients, that spice is going to dissipate and sort of blend in nicely. So when you're tasting the jalapeno, the spicy tequila now, it should be just a bit too spicy for you. I did go a little bit lighter just to kind of not knock everybody's socks off, but thank you, Michelle. We'll catch up with you soon. So with the spicy tequila, you want to make sure that you're testing it along the way. But what we do is 1 jalapeno, and we just sort of slice a couple of slits in the side of the jalapeno. We don't cut it straight through. We don't do jalapeno pieces. We don't cut up the jalapeno into pieces. With that, we find we get too much extraction. We just do like little slits in the side of the jalapeno, let it sit for a day with the liquid, and then you take it out. Another mistake I do think some people make with infusions is you let the ingredients still sit with the liquor. It has a time where you're done. So with this, when we're done with jalapenos, we take them out. If we were doing an infusion with limes, that lime infusion would take a day, maybe 2 days. But after that, we take the limes out. We don't want them sitting in the liquor for any longer. It just changes the flavor. And they start to get to the point where you're not getting the optimal flavor from those ingredients. All right, enough preaching. Let's get to making a cocktail. So we have our chili infused tequila, our strawberry puree. We're using the lime juice again. And we're using the agave again. There's a question about how much tequila for 1 jalapeno. 1 bottle of tequila for 1 jalapeno is a rule of thumb. If you have a tiny jalapeno, maybe you need a little less tequila or a little more jalapenos. But that is our rule of thumb for those infusions. All right. And if you were going to go the route of muddling, you would take about, let me just, for an ounce of strawberry, I would do about 3 strawberries to muddle. You have to think that you're also going to get less out of it. You're going to get much more pulp in this method than you would if you were just doing it straight. And the other thing I wanted to show is that if you're doing a muddle, it is important to make sure that you put a little bit of liquid with the fruit. So I'm just going to do a quick demonstration of how you would muddle. So I'm going to take these 3 strawberries, cut them in half. Now I'm going to use a mixing glass just so you can see what I'm doing here, but you would probably be using a shaker. It's just that you can see through this a little bit easier. All right, so if we're going to be muddling these strawberries here, we're going to drop about maybe a 1/4 ounce of syrup. It can be lime juice, it can be anything you'd like. We just want to have a little bit of liquid in the bottom of that, the bottom of this glass here. And you're really just trying to get as much fruit of this out as you possibly can. I have a tiny muddler today. It's not working well for me. So you're just going to be crushing the strawberries as much as you possibly can, using the liquid that's in there to give it a good mixture in. And when you get to the point that you have a paste at the bottom of your glass, that's a good part to start adding more of your ingredients. So the good thing is that this part of the recipe is already done for you. So you have a strawberry puree here that we'll be using. Let's grab our shaker. And we're going to start out with a ½ ounce of agave. Now this recipe, my base recipe for margaritas is usually 3/4 ounce of agave. We're dropping it back because of the sweetness from the strawberries. The lime juice stays the same, 3/4 ounces. 3/4 ounce, excuse me. And then it's 1.5 ounces of the tequila. Now, if you wanted to use your mezcal wild card here, this would be a good spot to use it. If you do, then you would go with 1 ounce of tequila and 1/2 ounce of mezcal. And what that's going to give is a bit of smokiness to go along with the spice from the tequila, and I think pair really nicely with the sweetness from the strawberry. And then lastly, I think I skipped over the strawberry puree. I'm going to do 1 ounce of the strawberry puree here. Okay. All right, we have everything we need here. Let's grab our glass and a shaker, and we'll fill each with ice. Now, when I made the strawberry puree, I did also use a bit of salt. I think salt is necessary for any type of preparation, especially when you're using fruit or vegetables. It's really going to bring out the flavor. We'll touch more on it when we talk about the rhubarb, but just for kind of a yeah, let's drink our thing, and I can preach after that. Same horizontal shake. This one, again, is going to also need a mesh strainer. And there's our spicy. It's going to be a lime wheel. So with that, you're just take the end of the lime off, and then maybe do a 1/4 ounce sized wheel and cut just a little slice in that so it can sit on the side of your glass. There you go. Spicy strawberry margarita. Enjoy. Cheers. You're missing a strawberry puree. I am so sorry. Let me catch up with you a little bit later and figure out a way to make that up to you.
Not really spicy.
What recommendation, if you don't like spice, would you recommend? Just straight tequila instead?
You can
of
just do it straight tequila. These cocktails the base spirits are pretty interchangeable. It's not necessarily obviously a margarita anymore if you use rum, but the same recipe is going to taste really nicely. It actually would be a strawberry daiquiri if you used rum. If you use gin, I'm trying to think what it would be at that point. What mezcal is this? Wonderful question to ask. This is Vita mezcal. This is another one. I'm actually in the process of us having these classes. Two of the mezcals that the State Store has added to their shelves have been fantastic mezcals. I've talked about Oaxaca in the past that I really like. This is another mezcal, Vita from Del Maguey, that is fantastic. I'm actually planning a class for Cinco de Mayo that we're going to do a mezcal cocktail on, probably multiple mezcal cocktails on. So that is coming up.
So this
Oh,
might be
we-
for a single.
We missed it. Did you stir or shake this one?
Shake. Always shake when you have fruit ingredients.
Always.
Always
Alright.
shake with fruit ingredients. Anytime you have citrus, anytime you have fruit, anytime you have anything that's pureed, you want to be shaking those ingredients together. Stir is for a cocktail that only has usually clear liquids. So vodka martini would be a stirred cocktail. The exception to that for me is a dirty martini. Most dirty martinis are shaken, at least in my experience. If you like a different one, that's perfectly fine.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So triple sec in a margarita is one of those things that there's no wrong answer to me. I like a margarita that is just tequila, lime, citrus. 2 ounces of tequila, 3/4 ounce of citrus, 3/4 ounce of sweetener. That is my base margarita recipe. If you do it with a bit of triple sec, I would adjust the sweetener down a bit. So maybe it's a 1/4 ounce of triple sec and then only a 1/2 ounce of sweetener there. But it's not a wrong way to make it. It's just a little bit different. I honestly think the people at Cointreau were really important in getting triple sec out there everywhere. Where did the smoky flavor come from? The smoky flavor, if you use the mezcal, is where you're getting the smoke from. If you're getting it just from the tequila, that's going to be slight. It's would be there slightly from maybe the spice, but the smoke is really going to come from the mezcal. This is actually on the menu at all of the White Dogs right now. Spicy margarita, spicy strawberry margarita, right? I think I can't even remember. I think so. We are going to pair this cocktail with our Shellbrook Hollow Sharp Chev, and that actually is coming with a strawberry jam. The Shellbrook Hollow is from Honeybrook in Chester County. And it's a family-run farm. We use their cheese at all of our locations. We use all natural ingredients. This is 2008 Best of Philly. I think this is, you'll see this at all of the locations. You have some crostini there to enjoy with the cheese as well. Okay. Any issues so far? Are we all caught up? Everybody's in the same place? Okay, wonderful. If you want to take a second and yep, the spicy blood orange was last week. We are now into our spring menu at White Dog. So strawberry mint martini is on the menu, strawberry margarita. The rhubarb, I believe, is in a mule at White Dog. We're using cucumber in 2 cocktails. There's a cucumber mojito, and then there's a spicy cucumber and cilantro and gin drink, the spicy scoundrel. That's actually been on the menu for going on, wow, 7 years now. Aging myself. How do you make the strawberry puree? As much pure strawberry as possible. So strawberries, if you need to add a little bit of water to get the blender moving, it's certainly needed, and that's fine. But it's really just strawberries, a little bit of water, and then I do add a pinch of salt. The salt does a great job of, I think, both accenting flavors, but also it cuts back on any bitter aspects that you have. So I think everybody's heard the spoonful of sugar helps make the medicine go down, or I believe that's what it is. Salt will actually help you as well, and more so because the salt does it pulls back on the bitterness. So you can add sweetness or you can cut back on the bitterness, and the salt will actually help you out more in that case than additional sugar would. So if you like just sort of eating whole grapefruits, instead of putting sugar on top of your grapefruits, try it with a little bit of salt in addition to that sugar, or even pull back on the sugar a bit and use a little bit of salt. And I think you'll find something that brightens the flavor of the grapefruit even more. So back to the original question was making the strawberry puree. So as much strawberry as possible, pinch of salt, and just a little bit of water to get the blender moving. Yes, so if we're making a Bellini, our Bellini default recipe is going to be a ½ ounce of, and this is sort of just a direct, let me read the question because it was just a direct one. They had the rhubarb Bellini, and it's a rhubarb and Aperol Bellini, and that's at the White Dog restaurants right now. And what we do with that is it's the rhubarb simple syrup, a ½ ounce of that, with a ½ ounce of Aperol, and then you just top the glass off with sparkling wine. And that is our fruited Bellinis. And I can send you that recipe later as well. All right, I think we're caught up on all questions. All right. So our last cocktail is going to be the Rhubarb Mojito. I am going to not, obviously, I like to think I do things with my own little flair, but I do things a little bit differently. How long do you leave the jalapeno? You leave the jalapeno in the tequila for 1 day. You can leave it a little bit longer if you like, but that is our ratio. So with mojitos, I don't muddle the mint. It's just the way that I prefer to make mojitos. I don't like things floating in my drinks. I don't like little bits and pieces of things in my drinks. So what I'm really trying to do is brighten up and get as much flavor from the mint as possible without getting little bits and pieces. I don't want the bitterness from the stems of the mint. I don't want any bits and pieces. I don't like that color. I actually think mojitos are best when they are mostly clear, unless you're doing a fruit component like we're doing here. But if you have just a plain mojito, it should be more clear than green. Green to me is sort of over extracted from the mint. So what we're going to be doing for our mojito is just smacking the mint to wake it up and using it in our cocktail. So let's grab our shaker and we'll make the last cocktail.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Is any difference in the bigger leaf than the smaller leaves in flavor on the mint itself?
There shouldn't be too much difference, no.
Okay.
And I would bet there's probably some, like, in just picking them, yes, you could probably taste the difference between like a younger leaf and an older leaf. But generally speaking, no, they're exactly the same. So our cocktail, the last one of the night, is going to be the same equipment we've been using. So we have our jigger, shaker set, and both strainers, the mesh strainer and the Hawthorne strainer. And we are going to use our Collins glass for this one. So if you need to either finish your cucumber gin cocktail or grab a new one. I don't want to waste it, that's just silly. So we have our glass set up, and then our software for this cocktail is going to be, we have our rum. So we're using rum. This is just Bacardi. You could use a flavored rum if you'd like, if you prefer flavored rums. Just keep in mind that if you are adding a flavored rum that has a bit of sweetness to it, you may want to adjust the sweetness that we add later with the simple syrup. But if you're using an 80 proof rum that has, maybe it's a peach rum or lime rum, I think is delicious in mojitos, you can use that, but this just is plain white Bacardi. We'll be using lime juice. We have our rhubarb simple syrup. And then we have our mint and soda. For the rhubarb simple syrup, and again, if anybody wants me to get more in detail with any of these recipes, just send me a quick email and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So if you're unfamiliar with rhubarb, rhubarb looks like this, looks like celery, bright pink color. Inside, not so much color though at all. It's sort of like pale pink to white. What we do with this, we chop it into little pieces about that big. We put it in a pot with water, bring it to a boil, add in the sweetener that we're using. If it's regular sugar, we add that in right there, mix it together, take it off the heat and let it steep until the rhubarb starts to break down, and then we strain it out. And that is our rhubarb simple syrup. So you have some there already made for you. And what we're going to do, let's move to the demo camera. And we'll get started with the last cocktail. All right, so our ingredients start out with 3/4 ounce of the rhubarb simple syrup. Three-quarters ounce of lime juice. Ounce and a half of rum. Now, if you wanted to use the mezcal here, it would work here as well. You would just do an ounce of rum and then a half ounce of mezcal. I think I'll probably do that as well. Being that I'm drinking for one, I have a little bit of extra mezcal. Okay, and then when we get to our mint ingredients, you're going to take about 5 pieces of mint in your hand. And it's really all we're doing. And you'll start to get the aromatics sort of popping right in your nose right away. That's what we're looking for. You want to smell the mint in the air. You want to get those sort of the leaves to release that aromatics. The leaves will then, you'll start to feel them, they'll lose some of their crispness. That's exactly what we want. We want them to be slightly bruised, not to the point that they're brown, but slightly bruised. We're gonna grab some ice for our shaker, and I'll grab some ice for our glass as well. So part of this is also that the ice is going to do some of the breaking down of the mint for us. It's good. It's exactly what we need. We want just a little bit of the bruising of the mint. We don't want to necessarily have like a mint puree. It's not what we need for this. We need to break down the mint just a little bit. Another example of this is when I use blackberries for cocktails, I don't really want the inside bitter part of the blackberry. I just want the blackberry pulp. Just those bulbs are on the outside. So you can just use blackberries in a cocktail by shaking them with the ice, and that breaks them down enough that you get the juice out of them without actually getting the bitter inside. So the ice is your friend in this case, that it's going to help you break down the ingredients and mix them together.
I'm sorry, Len, what did you do with the mint? I didn't, after we pounded it, I don't see what you did.
Sure. So with the mint, you're just taking about 5 pieces of mint in your hand. You're going to smack them and drop them in your shaker. So it's just a couple pieces like that. And then you drop them in.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we'll shake. And then again, I think you need a mesh strainer here. Use our Hawthorne and our shaker and our mesh strainer here. Okay. And then we're going to top that off with our club soda. Same thing, about 2 ounces of the club soda. And just enough to agitate. We're not stirring the cocktail. We don't want to release any more carbonation than we have to. And then if you have like a little bit of mint, that is nice to put on top as a garnish. You can also do another lime wheel if you'd like.
Len,
Yes.
this is our favorite.
This one's your favorite?
All 4 of us said it was our favorite.
Yeah, very good.
Awesome. Cheers, everyone.
They're all good. They're all good. But this is absolutely delish.
Cheers.
They are my kids, so I do have feelings for all of them, but
Hey, Len, do you ever do private bartending?
yes, absolutely.
Oh, good.
This class will be available in video. If you send me an email, I can send you a link to view it. And I will put my, there was a, I apologize. There was a direct question about the video of this class being available online.
Okay.
And I'm putting my email again.
Okay. Is it yours?
Mhm.
Thanks, Len.
Thank you.
Of course. Lastly, our last pairing of the night is the last cheese that you have. And that is the PA Noble Cave Aged Cheddar. And that's being served with brown sugar pecan mustard. PA Noble has been in Lancaster County since 1924. Family owned, they have 40 farms. Sorry, apologize. 40 cows, not 40 farms. That'd be silly. They have 40 cows. And the smoky PA Noble Cheddar is a raw cow's milk cheese. It's got a bit of sharpness as well. And then the chef also gave me some instructions on how he made the mustard. He was soaking mustard seeds overnight so that they soften up, and then pureeing that with vinegar, dark brown sugar, and mustard seeds into a paste. And then he added chopped candied pecans. Thank you for trying it out. Please come back for one of the classes we have in the future.
Absolutely.
I need a new drink.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. How do you do? Oh,
Is it over?
Daddy's like ready to have another
I can keep
cocktail.
going. Please. There's scotch all night, but yes. I think the portion of everyone's hanging around is over.
I think you know he's Dylan's father. He could be here all night with you.
I do have to try some of this food. I haven't eaten anything yet.
It's really
Thanks.
good.
You're staring at me. What's that?
We're eating the green goddess by the spoon.
It's delicious.
So good.
So good.
The cheese isn't good in it, but
Yeah, Carly tried the cheese. He's saturated in it.
I wish my ice maker was on.